Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Wednesday, April 8th, 2026 episode of the Marco Jure Show. Thank you for being here to tune in to today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best hour of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. Folks, halfway through the week, the first topic we've got to discuss today, let's get down to brass tacks. Again, it was a big shock to me to hear this yesterday evening. President Trump capitulating to the Iranians yesterday. I can't even believe it. A ceasefire? We threatened annihilation of them. We threatened to wipe them off the face of the earth. Now we're waving the conventional white flag and surrender? What is going on here behind the scenes? Now, clearly, I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I think after this rhetoric, after these insane tweets that he was putting out the last couple of days, or post rather, if you will, I think he got some pushback from the Pentagon, more than likely about this rhetoric about wiping the Iranian nation off the face of the earth as a civilization. What would the consequences be moving forward from that? Nothing positive. Certainly nothing positive for his administration. Now, again, I'm happy that he backed down. I'm happy that lives were saved on all sides. I'm happy for the first time we're seeing a little bit of a pause in this war, although I'm not convinced that this ceasefire will last very long. We've got to talk about really who was in control here. And I really believe that President Trump asked for this ceasefire, despite what we've heard from the likes of Pete Hegseth or General Kane during their morning press conference that they gave. I don't buy it. I think the Iranians were the ones that said, listen, these are the peace terms. And I believe the Pakistanis came to the United States and said, here's what they want. And I believe President Trump agreed to that. Now, will everything stick in this agreement? I don't know. But this is where we're starting from. We're starting from the Iranian position, not the United States. And that tells you who is winning this conflict. This tells you who is in charge right now. It's not the United States. It's not President Trump. Let's go over this 10-point framework really quickly, just so we understand exactly what's on the table right now, what the Iranians want to see to end this conflict. Now, they could come out and say, listen, we want each and every one of these 10 terms. Any one of these you turn down, the war's still on. That could be their approach. Only time will tell. But President Trump is in a defensive position right now. He and J.D. Vance have got to come to terms with this is the reality of where we are right now. This is the war we've gotten ourselves into for Israel. What's number one? It says permanent end to hostilities. Immediate and irreversible end to all military actions by the United States and Israel. So that means Israel has to get out of southern Lebanon. They've got to get out of Gaza. They can no longer bomb in Syria or Iraq. Yeah, this is going to be a very big thing for them. They want no temporary ceasefire model, rejection of phased or interim ceasefire frameworks. They only want a binding, listen to this, peace agreement is acceptable to them. That means they want something in writing. They want a treaty. I'm assuming they want a treaty that is, again, passed by Congress so that it's in writing, and that way there are ramifications should the United States stray away from it if they break that contract. They want it to be the law of the land, and that's smart by them. We talked about this yesterday on the show. I said Russia and Iran no longer want any handshake deals. They don't want anything, oh, we'll meet this day, yeah, okay. They want everything in writing now. They want everything passed by Congress. This is the only step forward they will agree with because President Trump, time and time again, has shown that he's not a man of his word. Certainly not dealing with foreign policy. So this is going to be very big should they get this passed. It's going to have to go through Congress to do so. They want regional de-escalation. They want an end to conflicts involving any Iran-linked group across Lebanon. Think Hezbollah. They want anyone in Syria, Iraq, the wider region. So they're very smart, the Iranians. They know that Israel has their eye on Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, the entirety of the region. parts of Turkey. They want parts of Iran. They want parts of Pakistan now. That's how crazy this whole Greater Israel policy is. Despite all that, if they are successful in this, they say, listen, if any of these groups, these nations are attacked, the war's back on. That means Trump has got to sit Netanyahu down and say, listen, we've got to make this deal because we're losing politically in the United States. I have no future if we continue this war. There's nothing to gain from this anymore. You told me this would be a 24, 48-hour operation. We'd be victorious. We'd get regime change. The Iranian people would rise up. And yet none of that happened. Now I'm, $42 billion on the hole now? And now we're giving them things that they were not going to have previous to this. It's a lose-lose situation for Trump. Plus, we're in a midterm year. This looks very bad. He's got to get out of this, and this is the only way he can get out of this. Now he wants, I should say the Iranians, they want security guarantees. They want binding international assurances to prevent future attacks or regime targeting operations. So again, they're very brilliant with this whole approach now. They want in writing that the United States and Israel will no longer attack them. And if they do, there will be consequences to that. Very smart. The next one might be the most brilliant of all. They want a Strait of Hormuz Protocol. This is a structured agreement ensuring safe maritime passage with recognizing Iran's strategic role and control concerns over that waterway. They are going to control the Strait of Hormuz from here on out. And what they will do, they will charge, this is what they want right now, $2 million per vessel that goes through that strait. They will pay over to the Iranians. I'm guessing they would probably work out some deal with the Omanis and either divide that up a certain way. That's how they're going to make a lot of money off this. This is how they're going to rebuild, by the way. I'm told, by the way, Iran will get an estimation of about $96 billion per year just from fees coming through the Strait of Hormuz. This is going to be a major boost to their economy. Absolutely, it's going to be good for them. Is President Trump going to allow the Iranians to pocket almost $100 billion every single year just on collecting fees off the Strait of Hormuz? If he is, again, this would be very, very beneficial to the Iranian government. Really beneficial. You're going to see that economy boom like in ways you've never seen before. Because the next thing they want is the lifting of all sanctions. I said this is going to be a provision of theirs. They want immediate removal of U.S. and international economic sanctions imposed on the state of Iran. Their economy is going to flourish if we allow this to happen. And you'll see massive rebuilding like you've never seen before in that government. Absolutely true. They want a release of all frozen assets, so unfreezing of the Iranian financial assets that are held abroad as part of the economic normalization. They want what's theirs given back to them. A lot of people say, well, didn't Obama give them $1.9 billion? Remember, he just gave them that money? And I said, no, that's not what happened, first of all. The $1.9 billion was their assets that we froze. Obama said simply by going into the JCPOA that we will give you your assets back if you agree to these terms that you will not build a nuclear weapon. They already had two fatwas out and said, okay, fine. We won't build a nuclear weapon for the set number of years. Fine. Works for us. Give us our money back. It's our money anyways. So it's not like, again, people word this incorrectly. It's not like Obama just said, here's $1.9 billion. Have at it. Now, what Biden did was something totally different, but that was not the origination of what was in the JCPOA. Let's be clear about this. The Iranians also want war reparations. That's number 8. They want reconstruction. They want compensation. They want international support for rebuilding their infrastructure that was damaged during this conflict. Now, however they get it, I have no idea. Will they get it from the Gulf Arab states as well? Will they say, listen, you owe us a certain amount of money so we can rebuild the damage that you have all caused us? They want sovereignty recognition. They want a formal acknowledgement of Iran's territorial integrity and political sovereignty. That means they don't want people interfering inside their government. That includes Mossad, MI6, the CIA. They don't want them arming groups, which Trump just admitted the other day, by the way, whether he knew it or not. Said, oh yeah, we gave them guns. I think he said on Easter Sunday, by the way, during the egg roll or whatever the hell it was called. Came out right away and said, oh, yeah, by the way, we gave them guns and it just didn't work out. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What, you gave the Baluchis guns? You gave the Kurds guns? You gave the Mujahideen al-Haq guns? You know, we talk about terrorism, ladies and gentlemen. That is the pure definition. If anyone were to, for example, let's say Mexico gave Antifa guns to go and attack the U.S. government, we'd call that terrorism, and rightfully so. That'd be complete interference in our system, as is. That'd be a way to take us down. That's treason. And we'd be right to respond in kind to it. So I'm not shocked at all. They want sovereignty over their government, over their economy, and what have you. They want to be left alone. That's what it looks like to me. And finally, they want a structured peace mechanism. That means a clear roadmap for any long-term peace plan. Right now, again, I think everything will be signed in treaty form. It'll have to be passed by the U.S. Senate, that we will stay out of their affairs. That includes follow-up negotiations, monitoring mechanisms to ensure their sovereignty, their peace. Honestly, it's not a bad proposal, to be honest with you. If you want to be left alone by the United States, this is the roadmap you would follow. Now notice, there's nothing in here about nuclear weapons. There's nothing in here about enrichment of uranium. There's nothing about aiding their own proxies. This is strictly on Iranian terms now. Now, will Trump maybe try to throw things in there like that? He might be able to get something in there, like a written, obviously, agreement that they're not going to build a nuclear bomb, which, by the way, our intelligence has told us for decades now, they're not building a nuclear bomb. So maybe they'll throw that in there. Okay, yeah, well, we're not going to build a nuclear bomb. Trump says, hey, I'm victorious. Look what I just did. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he had that last June. June of 2025, he had everything he wanted from the Iranians. You didn't like the JCPOA? Okay, fine. But he had this last June. He had them not enriching past 3.5%. He had their word that they weren't going to build a nuclear bomb. And he had their word that we would allow our own military weapons inspectors to come into their nuclear facilities and to ensure they are not building a nuclear bomb or anything of the sort. They were going to give us everything we wanted, and what did we allow Israel to do? We allowed them to kill Ali Shamkhani, the head negotiator, killing nuclear scientists. I don't blame the Iranians for not believing President Trump at his word. I understand completely why they want everything down in a peace negotiation. That is a peace treaty now. Again, ratified by Congress. Law of the land. Now, whether Trump abides by that, because honestly, folks, he hasn't abided by a lot of things as far as treaties are concerned, or international law, I think UN charters and what have you. But this is what the Iranians want. That way they can go to the UN and say, listen, we're in a peace negotiation. We have a treaty with the United States. Here are the terms. They are violating them. That puts pressure back on the United States. So I think the Iranians are coming out very victorious with this. It's a big win for them. And it's everything the opposite of what Pete Hegseth is saying to us now. He said this morning now. Let's move into some of what he's talking about. Again, the guy doesn't know what the hell he's speaking about. There's no victory here for Pete Hegseth or the United States. It's been a complete blunder for us. This is him this morning. Take a listen. I think you'll be surprised.
Iran has been a threat to the United States and the free world for 47 years. Chance of death to America, targeting our people, killing Americans, lying and blackmailing their way toward a nuclear weapon, so they thought. No longer. Not on our watch. Other presidents marked time and kicked the can down the road. President Trump made history. From the strike that took out Qasem Soleimani, to tearing up the disastrous Obama-Iran deal, to the precision campaign that obliterated Iran's nuclear sites in Operation Midnight Hammer, to the decisive military victory we just achieved in Operation Epic Fury. No other president has shown the courage and resolve of this commander-in-chief. President Trump forged this moment. Iran begged for this ceasefire, and we all know it. As the President truth this morning, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough.
First of all, everything he just said here is a bunch of nonsense. Iran is not the number one state sponsor of terror. That's number one. He calls them a terrorist state to start off with, denigrating them. I'll ask you again, folks, what American civilians has Iran killed in the last 47 years? I'll give you a hint. The answer is 0. Now, yes, some of the proxies of Iran have killed American soldiers in the region that are at war with these countries. That's the truth of the matter. Now, I'm not happy about that. I don't think anyone's happy about war. I don't like war unless it's absolutely 100% necessary or if we're defending ourselves. But this is the truth of the matter. They try to assert that Iran is exporting all this terrorism throughout the region, and they're not. They're simply not. That's number one. Number two, he starts talking about the JCPOA, how it was a disastrous treaty with the Iranians to stop them from developing a nuclear weapon, asserting what President Trump has said, that this would give them a path to build a bomb. Well, okay, let's just say that was true. I don't believe that's true, but let's say it was true. Why would you rip up the only thing preventing them from building a nuclear bomb and leaving them at their own devices to do whatever the hell they want? You didn't replace it with anything then. So that in and of itself is completely stupid. So that's obviously the second thing he talks about there. The third thing he talks about, though, I think is really the most telling here. He starts going on this rift about how everything we've done now is successful, from Midnight Hammer, from killing Soleimani, who, by the way, was in a peace conference at the time he was killed. That's what he was attending. Yeah, did you know about that? Well, that's what he was doing. The guy responsible for terror, right? We took him out. This is all a bunch of nonsense. 100%. The Iranians were not begging us to do anything. It was we that were begging the Iranians. What objectives did the United States achieve here? Pete, can you tell us anything we've achieved? We haven't stopped their nuclear enrichment. We haven't stopped. If they want to have a nuclear program, they can still build that. We haven't stopped their ballistic missile program. We haven't saved the Iranian people, so-called. We haven't opened up the Strait of Hormuz. What did we honestly achieve here? By the way, the Strait of Hormuz was open the entire time to ships that were paying in the Chinese yuan that the Iranians said could go through. Anyone associated with the United States or Israel were denied. And by the way, any of those ships could have tried to go through that strait. But obviously insurance brokers said, no, you're going to stay put. We're not insuring you, multi-million dollars worth of ships, cargo, you name it, to go through the strait and possibly get sunk to the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Not going to happen. So it wasn't the Iranians. It was obviously the insurance company saying, you got to stay put. You got to stay put this entire time. So there's Pete Hegseth there making a fool of himself. Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. I don't know how this guy got into Princeton. Where did he go? Harvard too? It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So there was Hegseth on all that. Then he goes on further, though, to talk about how this whole thing was victorious for the United States. You're never going to believe this. Take a listen.
Operation Epic Fury was a historic and overwhelming victory on the battlefield. A capital V military victory. By any measure, Epic Fury decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come. You see, in less than 40 days, one of our combatant commands, Central Command, CENTCOM, using less than 10% of America's total combat power, dismantled one of the world's largest militaries. The world's leading state sponsor of terrorism proved utterly incapable of defending itself, its people, or its territory. We untied just a fraction of our strength, and Iran suffered a devastating military defeat.
Okay, Pete, here we go. There you go again with the claim, number one state sponsor of terrorism. Look at the CIA's own assessment. This is our own CIA. Since 2000, I think until last year, they assessed all the terrorism in the region. All around the world. Iran wasn't even in the top 10 of all this. The top 10 groups were these Shia Muslim groups, primarily. You can think the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, other groups that are affiliated with all these. Iran wasn't even close to the top of the list. And yet, for some reason, we keep, and I hear this on mainstream media all the time, The number one state sponsor of terrorism. Not even close. This is from our own intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, not Marco Gerais telling you. This is our own intelligence inside the United States that are reporting this. So, no, they're not the number one state sponsor of terrorism, and it's stupid to even consider that. But again, I'll ask you again, where is the victory here? Where are we victorious in this? We're capitulating to them, not the other way around. Raising Cain was also there at the press conference this morning, and by the way, he had some things to say. Usually, these are just statistics just to bolster up what we've done in the region, but they equate to nothing. We've heard similar things like this during the Vietnam War. Generals getting up saying, we've defeated, 20% of this, X number percent of that. We demolished this. But what is it equating to? And again, if we look at what's really taking place on the ground, the Iranians are still very much in control of their government. We haven't defeated their government. We haven't toppled anything. We didn't go through with our plan of destroying power plants, bridges, desalination plants, oil fields, oil wells. We didn't destroy any of it. So how can we come out here and say this is all victorious? And what is the purpose of all this? What was the purpose of losing 13 brave young men in this conflict? However many injured. God knows how many have been injured, all this. Whatever numbers they're telling us, too, by the way. The amount of money that we've wasted in this conflict. What was it all for if we're capitulating to the Iranians? Nonetheless, here's Raising Cain, folks. Take a listen to clip 3.
As the Secretary said, the Iranian Navy now lies mostly at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf, and we assess that we've sunk more than 90% of their regular fleet, including all of the major surface combatants, as the Secretary said. 150 ships are at the bottom of the ocean, and half of the IRGC Navy's small attack boats. Joint fires projected from the land, sea, and air executed more than 700 strikes against naval mine targets, and we had assessed that we destroyed more than 95% of their naval mines. And perhaps most importantly, we've destroyed Iran's defense industrial base, their ability to reconstitute those capabilities for years to come. We attacked, along with our partners, approximately 90% of their weapons factories. Every factory that produced Shahed one-way attack drones was struck. Every factory that produces the guidance systems that go into those drones was struck. Their missile defense industrial base is shattered, with more than 80% of their missile facilities gone, as well as their solid rocket motor production capability. It will take years for Iran to rebuild any major surface combatants, as more than 20 naval production and fabrication facilities have been damaged or destroyed. And nearly 80% of Iran's nuclear industrial base was hit, further degrading their attempts to attain a nuclear weapon.
Okay, folks, so there we go again. Statistics, does that mean anything to you? Anybody? Is that preventing the Iranians from doing what they are doing currently? By the way, I want to make something very clear, just so we're all understanding where we are right now. The United States is still sending weapons, munitions to the region right now. Remember, folks, a ceasefire is a pause. And in my estimation, the war is far from over. And the Iranians have said, very much so, that this is total war for them. They have stated very clearly, a ceasefire on all fronts or no ceasefire at all. That means if the United States, for example, right now were to fire into Tehran to destroy the civilian targets, because that's the only thing that's left for them, that the war is still on for them. They're ready to go. Now, I got an article for us in CNBC. Let's move on to this. It says here that many Middle Eastern countries reported incoming missiles and drones from Iran on Wednesday. Obviously, this would be after the ceasefire. So the ceasefire brokered by Pakistan, is it even in effect, really? Because we're still getting our targets hit in these countries. That's a question you've got to ask yourself. Are we even in a ceasefire right now? The Israeli military said it had identified ballistic missile attacks from Iran early on Wednesday, with early warnings issued in central and northern parts of the country. The UAE, for example, said that its air defense systems were intercepting missiles and drones and urging the public to remain in a safe place. Saudi Arabia's civil defense organization also issued warnings of potential danger across the country, including in Riyadh. Kuwait and Bahrain and Qatar also issued alerts or activated defenses as threats emerge across the region. So, are we in a ceasefire? Are the Iranians still continuing to hit these sites? What's going on here? What's the truth of the matter? Because on all fronts, it shows me that the Iranians really haven't stopped. They're still hitting their targets as expected. They were hitting inside of Israel just yesterday evening. Does anyone really believe that Netanyahu, by the way, will honor any ceasefire with Iran right now? Does anyone think that he's going to let the Greater Israel Project just simply die and go away? I don't buy it for a second. And I think he'll do anything he can to stymie any agreement with the United States, or relations really, any positive relations, because this has been his play the entire time. I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, right now we're seeing, the continued bombing inside of southern Lebanon. And by the way, folks, just so we're clear of this, they're supposed to be in a ceasefire right now with Lebanon. Yet here we are. They're bombing inside of Beirut, for example. Unbelievable. Thousands of people killed. 1 million people displaced from their homes. The conflict happening inside Gaza right now. They're supposed to be in a ceasefire with Gaza right now. Where is the board of peace? Where is it? Who is holding this man accountable? Or is nothing supposed to be done about this? Or is it simply just a farce? That's what I think it is. So I don't know if this ceasefire will last. I don't know if we'll see the resumed bombing right now, or once these weapons and munitions get to the region, or when the 10,000 Marines are all in place. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows. But every time we've heard ceasefire, folks, what have we always seen as a result? We've seen continuation of war very, very soon after. So I don't buy that this is going to last very long. I really don't. I can't see President Trump giving them all the things, their requirements, I will say, that's what they are, to end this conflict. I can't see him capitulating to this level. Now, he might sell it as how Pete Hegseth and General Kano try to sell. Oh, 90% of this is gone, 90% of that's gone. It's going to take them years to build anything related to nuclear technology. Well, okay, maybe they sell it to the American people. I don't think it's going to work, but maybe that's how they sell it to get us out of this conflict. But folks, I told you before, early on, before this war started, I said you don't send a fleet to the Mediterranean, you don't send a fleet to the North Arabian Sea, and just let them sit there. And I don't think you're going to send 10,000 Marines. I don't think you're going to send more ammunition, munitions, missiles, you name it, to the region, just to sit there. I don't believe it. And by the way, I got to be honest with you, I don't think that the Iranians are going to allow military bases in these Gulf Arab states that have hosted the United States moving out from where we are now. I don't believe they're going to allow that. I think that's going to be another provision. They're going to say, listen, you're done in this region. You're done. It's over. It's over. Now, does that mean that they won't put troops, let's say, in Israel and start to try to attack Iran? Well, only time will tell. But that means Israel's going to be under attack again. And I think you're going to see a lot of people leaving the Gulf Arab states. I think you're going to see a lot of people leaving Israel because it just simply isn't safe. And the Iranians are not going to kowtow when they're winning this. They know that this is a fight for their own survival. And if these terms are not met, then the war goes on. So now the ball is in Trump's court. Will he allow this? I think he'll put this on for a couple weeks to either replenish what we've lost so far, till we get the arms we need to continue these strikes, and then you'll see the resume of this war very, very soon, like we've seen in the last 6 weeks. So I don't see any victory here, folks. I don't see any positivity as far as what's going on. I like that we're not fighting right now. That's about the only positive thing that's come from this. But this is not going to end right now. There's no way President Trump can end on this note, accepting this type of defeat. Not at all. And I think as time goes on, you're going to see the U.S. get isolated from a lot of its allies in the region. I don't think many of them are happy with the United States. And I don't think even Netanyahu's happy with Trump right now for even proposing a ceasefire and leaving Israel out to dry as it is. So there's that, folks. By the way, one of the things I want to talk about with you today that I saw yesterday, after yesterday's show, we talked about why Trump did this. Now, there could be a whole plethora of reasons why he would have done this. I don't know what the man thinks. But I saw this in the New York Post just yesterday. And I got to tell you, they were talking about closing down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea. That the Iranians are going to help the Houthis close this. And I said, that's going to be the next step in this war. That's the next trajectory of which we're reaching now. And then all of a sudden, we see Trump later that day say, listen, we're not going to bomb you. We're going to stop. We want to, ceasefire. We're saying you want the ceasefire, but it's really us. But this is where we are now in this conflict, folks. This is where we are. This is where we're going. Now, will the Houthis continue to shut that down? I don't know. I think if the war continues here, they obviously, for the third time now, the Iranians are told, hey, we're in a ceasefire, and they get hit again. I don't know how many times they could believe President Trump at his word, but I digress. By the way, we talked about the Strait of Hormuz being opened up already, and how we see the price of oil now adjusting to that. We see the Dow is now gaining. Again, it's all temporary, folks. Don't get your hopes up. Nothing's going to happen just yet. This is out of the New York Post. It says here that Iran threatens to destroy ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz despite the ceasefire pact. So, I asked you before, is the ceasefire even in effect? Is it? Until it gets, obviously, approved by Congress. I don't know. I don't think so. But it says here that Iran's battered navy, apparently, right? Apparently they have no navy, but yet they're controlling the strait. We can't open it up. But their battered navy has reportedly warned foreign ships on Wednesday that they will be destroyed if they attempt to cross the Strait of Hormuz without permission from Tehran. This is what was said to the Wall Street Journal. It says here, you must receive permission from the Iranian Sefa Navy for passing through the strait. If any vessels try to transit without permission, will be destroyed. There you go. Does that sound like everything's opened up? Does that sound like everything's free? No, it doesn't. It sounds like, hey, you either pay in the Chinese yuan with our permission, or you stay still. That's what it comes down to. So, again, I don't know that we're in a good position here. I don't know that moving forward that the strait will open up completely. Like I said before, I think they're going to start charging $2 million per vessel to come through that strait. By the way, what is that going to do to the price of oil? You're paying an additional $2 million for the same amount of oil? Sounds like it's going to be very costly. So the opening of the strait was really the key provision of this so-called Iran war ceasefire, was it not? You've seen the fuel prices surging worldwide? But now Tehran says it had used missiles, it's used drones to wreak havoc on the strait in retaliation against the U.S. and Israeli strikes on the country, which again is taking a toll on the global economy. Trump sees this. He understands this. So my question to you is there really a ceasefire if the strait is not opened up yet? Will Trump agree to those terms? And I think the answer to that is going to be an astounding no. Hell no. Not going to happen. So we could say, yeah, we're in a ceasefire now. We've heard this vernacular time and time again. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I just don't believe it, folks. I think this is to help manipulate the markets. I guess all of a sudden we're about diplomacy all of a sudden. I don't buy it, though. I really don't buy it. You got to understand, the Iranians are the victors of this war. So until they get all those provisions, I think you'll see that strait shut down as of right now. Just my take on it. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the strait will open up miraculously all of a sudden tomorrow. We'll see ships going through. And by the way, really quickly, before we move on, we've got to understand something. A lot of the oil in the Gulf Arab states has been shut down. It's offline right now. It's not working. They're not doing anything. They're not producing. They're not refining. So even if we were to open up that strait today and say, listen, everything's back in business, get to work. It's going to take months to get everything back to really where it was, and anything that's been destroyed likely could take up to a couple years to do so. Again, that's not me saying it. That's what people in the field that know what the hell they're talking about are saying. So I tend to believe them. That's the truth of the matter. On a different front, I think you'll enjoy this, though. We're happy that the pause is taking place. I'm very happy about that. Absolutely. Again, I pray for our troops and their safety and what have you. And again, I pray for innocent lives in these countries, too. Don't misunderstand me. War is a horrible thing. We should always be pushing for peace. But another story worth noting right now that's very crucial, that I think is positive. What is this in? Looks like it's in Fox News. Look at this. This was just yesterday. Says here, Republican congressional candidate Clay Fuller just received a win in a major win here in Georgia to obviously replace Marjorie Taylor Greene after she stepped down in January. And it looks like the special election came as Republicans are now clinging to a razor-thin 218 to 214 majority in the House. I guess we'll get whatever we can take, right, folks? So the GOP was under the gun to make sure that the Democrats didn't pull off the upset in this special election in a district in the Northwest Georgia territory that Trump carried by a whopping 37 points in his 2024 presidential victory. So now the Trump-backed Fuller looks like will now take her place and move forward. And so something I guess we could be positive about. Not all is lost. And I told you before, the midterms are still up in the air. What Trump does in this war and what he does for the economy will be very indicative of how the results turn out. But right now, folks, he's underwater, despite what you hear. He's lost all the support of independents who were anti-war that came out and supported him. They're gone. A lot of the MAGA base is depleted. Don't listen to CNN and say, wow, 100% of MAGA still support Trump. That's a complete lie. He doesn't have the full support of MAGA even. It's a crucial time. And we need to make sure that whatever we can save right now. Because handing it over to the Democrats is not going to make anything positive. Certainly, Trump will be a lame duck if he loses, and he will face impeachment moving forward. That's the truth of the matter. So, however we can hold on to the House, we might have another razor-thin 2018 to 214. Might be that way. And we might try to bid for certain things. But this is where we are right now. I mean, we are not gaining momentum, is what I'm trying to tell you. And Trump's biggest base right now is big oil, big gas, big tech, big AI. Some of the moguls in the news media and what have you, and of course the upper echelon of the business community. And of course the military-industrial complex. These are the people who are backing Trump right now, unequivocally. He has lost support of the average American, unfortunately, folks. And none of us were expecting that, but that's where he is right now. He doesn't have the big base that he once had back in 2024 and where he was prior to that. Doesn't have it because he totally changed the script. He became a wartime president instead of a president of peace. And nobody likes the rhetoric. Nobody likes the things he's saying right now. He's not boosting the economy. He's not making America great again. And that's what he ran on. That's why we elected President Trump. So I hope he will take a step back at some point. Maybe he needs to fire some people around him. Maybe it's time to fire Pete Hegseth, who's absolutely 100% worthless. Maybe he needs to get a new chief of staff. Maybe someone who will tell him the truth. Maybe he'll get people in there that will argue with each other about what's right and what's wrong versus the yes men all surrounding him. I don't know what it needs to be. Maybe he needs a new attorney general that will obviously be different than Blanche and Pam Bondi. That will actually prosecute people for their crimes. That would be good, especially the Epstein case. Speaking of the economy, though, I think this is something very important that you'll want to hear. So let's talk about this right now. This is out of the Brownstone Institute. It's not your grandfather's stagflation. This is where we are right now. We're talking about stagflation in a midterm year. Again, not a good look. Now, it's pretty obvious before the February 28th war that took place in Iran that the economy was still to a grinding halt, right? Even as inflation was already working up a little bit, right? We talked about this. Then came this war. And I told you before, if we go to this war, it's not going to be good. Inflation is going to rise. We're going to see stagnation. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it right now in the numbers. I don't make them up. These are what they are. We're going to get a global shaking economic conflagration erupting from the void of what's taking place in the Persian Gulf. That's why Trump wants to open it up. He sees it. He understands this. But the people around him are saying, no, Mr. Trump, please go forward. We're going to win. We're going to win. 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. They'll collapse, believe me. And that's not happening. And I think the realization that it's not happening for him is starting to work out. So this includes, 20, maybe 50% of all the basic commodities that have driven up the global GDP. Think about the crude oil, the LPGs, the LNG, the ammonia, the urea, the fertilizer, the sulfur, helium, and God knows what else comes out of that region, is all put out on hold right now. Nothing's coming to the United States. It's a big problem. Now, we also can talk about, God forbid, if the Suez Canal route gets shut down, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, if that gets shut down too, we're going to have an even bigger problem of the flow of commodities. But here it comes down to stagflation. That's where we're in right now. And if it gets even worse, we're going to be in what's called dragflation, which is low economic output and really, really high inflation. Let's hope we don't get to that. But it's not going to be merely the typical painful type of stagflation we saw in the 1970s, right? Where we saw 120% rise in the price level during that whole entire decade. Awful time for the economy inside the United States. But even then, it wasn't a total wipeout when measured from the vantage point of the real median family home. Why was that? Well, because we had a great period of growth in America, particularly from 1954 to about 1969. We let this ridiculous Vietnam War come in. We had all these moronic social programs of the Great Society by LBJ come in. But during the 54 to 69 period, that 15-year span, we had a lot of growth in the United States. You saw real median family income rising from, I think it was about $40,000 to about $66,000. I mean, it was a robust economy. You have, per annum, about 3.53% growth just in the family wages. We saw growth like never before. And a lot of it's attributed to World War II. We were the bigger superpower. We were the ones producing. We didn't get destroyed like the rest of Europe did. So we had to produce a lot. And we were producing a lot. Now, of course, that uphill march of Main Street prosperity slowed sharply in, the inflationary 1970s. But the blue line chart that I'm looking at right now is showing me exactly the median family income. And, you look at the time frame and you see it totally just kind of flatline in the 1970s. And that upward projection, just totally stops in about 1970. And it kind of slowly trickles up into 1980. You get a couple high points. But you got to understand something. Between 1969 and 1980, the real median family income growth was not very impressive. Probably about 0.6% every single year. Now, of course, when Reagan got into the presidency, he did some things with the economy, changed some things around, and the economy grew. Reagan did a nice job. I think it was on average, 20,000 to 50,000 was the way each family grew in that time frame in the 1980s. It was a lot. It grew again. Things started to grow again. But that was Reagan. Now we get into the 1990s. We have Bill Clinton come on the scene, right? Good old Slick Willie comes on, right? And what do we get? We get NAFTA. We get some deregulation. We get a lot of the bigs going in and buying things up. We get Glass-Steagall. We get a lot of these awful bills that came through. And they had awful consequences to our economy. We saw the outsourcing of jobs starting to take place, right? We saw the manufacturing starting to go, among other things, primarily. So instead of going primarily just to China, they started going south of the border, right? You have the Chinese entering the World Trade Organization thanks to Bill Clinton in 2001. And as a result, their stagnation in their government, which was flatlined for about 3 decades, it was just a straight line across. Now that number has skyrocketed in China. You see China developing now. Why? Because they're producing. I told you cannot hollow out the middle class, and you only do that because you take away your manufacturing. Can't do it. Can't happen. So here's the other thing. The economy of the 1970s, they were able to cope with it, right? Even though you had gas lines and what have you. But today it's a completely different story. Now we're looking at a decade of stagflation now, where we're looking at the debt spiraling out of control. We're looking at inflation, among other things, out of control because Congress isn't setting the prices anymore. Just not happening. It's not working. So when we look at, again, I'm looking at it now, I'm looking at things like the debt and what have you. We're looking at the expenses now that people are buying and paying. We're looking at the debt, for example, per American is something like we've never seen before. Now, yes, we're in the greatest country on earth. I understand this. But when you take away the opportunities, that's what I'm talking about here. When you outsource the good paying jobs, the opportunities, when you start bringing in the H-1B visas, which Trump, for some reason, wants to do, Americans lose out on these opportunities. Why would you want the Americans to lose out on these opportunities? That's the big question. I can't answer that for you. Only he could do that. But the problem is, we've got to get out of this. And the one way we get out of this, number one, we've got to start making sure that we are hiring Americans first. That should be first and foremost, day one of his presidency, and he didn't do it. So this brings us to the impeding stagflation of right now, the Trump administration. Now, as it was prior to February 28th, the real output growth had already stalled. According to any real GDP statistics, growth between quarter four of 2025 and looks like they made a mistake here. I think they're trying to say quarter one of 2025 and quarter four. We only saw about 1.78% GDP growth. Not a lot. Not what we were expecting. We wanted over 3%. We wanted to get away from what Biden was doing. And virtually all of this was in the AI bubble, which I told you this year we're going to get an AI bubble bust. Not going to be good. We're also going to get a building bust. Why are we going to get a building bust? Because we have about 20% of the buildings in America are empty. How long until you default on those? And what's going to happen to the banking industry, the financial industry, as a result of that? Nothing positive. So we have a massive diversion of capital that was not owing to the overpowering use of AI, for example. We talk about layoffs from a lot of these companies, these big tech companies. Not good for the average American. When you talk about replacing jobs in America, whether it be a menial job or a programming job or whatever type of job, the global economy is going to go into a tailspin like nothing we've ever seen before. It's going to be greater than the Great Depression. Now, why do I tell you this? Because the energy costs, the fuel costs have already soared. We're upwards of, $4.62 now, on average now, across the country. We have problems with this. Diesel fuel sets the way things are going to go for the prices. Diesel fuel now is already above its 2022 level at $5.40 per gallon. It's still climbing right now. Trump has got to see this. He's got to take a step back. He's got to stop just listening to Hegseth and Rubio and Netanyahu and the other dunces in his administration and say, how do I fix this economy? How do we get this economy booming to where it was in 1954, not 2014? How do we get the prices down? How do we bring production costs down? Because if we don't, that stagflation, by the way, when you have debt to where it is now, how are we going to pay that off? And again, every year we spend about $1 trillion just in the interest on that debt. You're going to have a staggering economy. And the labor markets are frozen. I mean, where is the opportunity for young Americans? This is what I've been telling you for so long. This is why the Mamdamis win. This is why the Wilsons in Seattle win. This is why the squad wins, because they're selling you junk, even though it is junk. At least it's something. At least it's someone saying, hey, you vote for me, I'll give you X, Y, and Z. It'll be free. It's never free, of course. But they're offering you something because nobody else is. That's what it comes down to. And now the inflation genie is now out of the bottle, but the Fed cannot really slam on the brakes of the U.S. economy because of the staggering debt that we're in. That's just what it is. And if we get this commodity inflation cycle that is on its way up because the prices are going up, the CPI numbers are going to go up, the inflationary numbers are going to go up, and less people working, you add the AI bubble on this, you're going to have stagflation like you've never seen before. You're going to be wishing it was 1970 and you were in a gas line based on what we're seeing right now. Now, for those of you that keep listening to this show, I've been telling you this for quite some time now. Now, again, I hope I'm wrong with all this. I hope Trump turns the economy around. But we're not producing like we once were. And that's the problem with all of it. We've got to start becoming a major creditor, a major producer. And if we can do that, I think we can start getting things back on track. We don't have to import goods anymore. And of course, we would avoid all these ridiculous tariffs that we find ourselves in as we see it now. So that's why I bring up these topics of the economy to you, not to scare you, but to prepare you. I told you before, you should be diversifying your assets. You should be. First and foremost, you should always be storing up on extra food, water, gold, money, tools, ammo, medicines, supplements, anything you need to be self-sufficient. Because if this economy takes off the way it looks like it's going to take off, and by take off I mean take you down, it's not going to be positive for anybody that's listening to the program. You know, the top 1% will be all right. They'll be okay. You and I, we will not be all right. And that's the problem with all this. Now, another topic I'd like to discuss with you next is out of the Washington Examiner. This is Somali fraud. We've talked about this time and time again. But look, listen to this article. This is going to make you shake your head. And it has a little story in the beginning. I think it'll be nice and generous for you to imagine what's going on here. But listen to this. It says, in 2022, Somali refugee Abdullah Ali moved out of a mobile home on the outskirts of Maine's most populous city and into a 3,312 square foot luxury dwelling in the state's second wealthiest town. Imagine that. The only problem with all this, well, it might sound like a success story right now, was that he bought the home the same year he was accused of overbilling the Maine Department of Health and Human Services to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not a bad scam, right? We talk about the welfare fraud in the Somali community, and by the way, it's not just the Somali community, although they have been the ones in the foreground abusing it the most. But we look at these communities that have dominated the national headlines for months now. The discrepancies in childcare and the autism assistance programs within the Somali community in Minnesota, for example. But since then, lawmakers have initiated investigations into the issue, and the White House has assembled a dedicated anti-fraud task force. Now, J.D. Vance is supposed to be leading this. I haven't heard of any major developments as of late, but he's the one in charge of this. Let's hope he gets to work on this. This might be beneficial for the Trump administration. God only knows. But here we go. Let's take a look at all this fraud we find ourselves in. Now, against this backdrop, the trouble started for Ali at the tail end of 2025. A whistleblower working for Ali went public with allegations that the health services company that he so-called runs defrauded Maine's Medicaid program out of millions of dollars. And of course, he reaps the benefits. The whistleblower who handled the billing for Ali's business claimed that he had filed false records in order to charge taxpayers services that weren't actually being provided. So in other words, he wasn't providing the services of which he claimed he was. It was all completely fictitious. Now, just a few weeks after this whistleblower went public, the Maine Department of Health and Human Services announced that he would be cutting off funding to the Gateway Community Services, which Ali's company says that he funded, and it was under review for credible allegations of fraud. Now, while Ali hasn't been charged formally with any crimes, and again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, the state reportedly is trying to recover north of about $1 million from his company. No shock there. So we've got to look at where we are right now. We've got so many people, for example, not just in Minnesota. Again, it's all across the board. We can look at homeless services in California. We can look at things in Maine. We can look at things in D.C. We can look at all over the country. Why is there no oversight? Why is there no follow-up when the government is dishing out so much money to ensure that these services are being provided to the communities of which they claim to represent? Why is this a group of people that are getting rich off our taxpayer dollars? Is anyone going to be held accountable for this? Look what this guy was buying. Take a look at this. We got property records indicating that Ali agreed to purchase an $875,000 home in Falmouth, Maine, where the average household income is about $224,000. He provided a $175,000 down payment and signed a $700,000 30-year mortgage, according to the documents reviewed by the Washington Examiner. Isn't that nice? So, we got to understand something. When you bring in people into our country, right? They're supposed to be a net benefit to the country. They're not supposed to come here and then rip the country off, are they? Where's his money going? It's going into his pocket. He's not providing any services. This is jail-worthy, of course. This is fraud to the nth degree. But how do we stop this? How do we stop these ridiculous programs? This is what it comes down to. We talked about the Great Society just a moment ago. When you have people working on their own, not getting these stupid grants or what have you, or these loans from the government, when you have people investing on their own. Now, if he went to the bank and said, hey, I've got this program, I'm doing this, fine, whatever, I could care less. But when you go through these government programs, whether it be through the state or for the federal government, and you're receiving millions of dollars per year, why is there no oversight on this? How is nobody going to this business saying, hey, I'm here to check up on the 50 people you have employed, and of course the 200 people you're providing services to? I'd like to see the records right now. Why is there no oversight of this in this country? Why do we just hand out money blindly to people and assume that they're doing what they're saying they're doing? Because obviously this scam is really running deep. I think we can all agree on that. So what J.D. Vance needs to do is, first of all, find this money, first and foremost, where this money's going, and either extract it from these people. And if they're not of good standing, why are they in this country in the first place? Why are we bringing people in this country that are ripping people off, claiming to care for children or kids with autism or homelessness or whatever it may be? I don't even care what it is. And allowing them to stay in this country. That's the biggest problem I have with all this. You come to this country and you rob the country for over $1 million? The country that took you in? You know, if denaturalization for immigration is a thing, I think we need to start moving along with this. Because a country cannot sustain this, folks. It just can't happen. We need to get this money back. We need to get these programs under control. And we need to stop this fraud. This has got to stop. A country cannot sustain this level of fraud to the tune of billions of dollars every single year. I'll just leave it to you like that. Oh, by the way, that's not all that's happening right now. And I got to talk to you a little bit about Bill Gates. You know, my favorite Bill Gates of hell, right? This is out of the International Business Times. You know, we've been so focused on this war, but I haven't forgotten about Jeffrey Epstein. And look what I just saw today. Bill Gates to address ties to Jeffrey Epstein and House Committee testimony. Oh, Billy, tell us some more. So we got Bill Clinton, came through the Oversight Committee. Nothing happened, of course. Gets to walk free. And then, of course, we have Bill Gates coming down to testify to the House Oversight Committee on June 10th about his past interactions with the convicted sex offender. Yeah. Now, what's going to come from this? What happened to Bill Clinton? What happened to Hillary Clinton? Did anything happen? Not a damn thing. But isn't it interesting now that in the background we get these committees coming forward, saying that, well, he never witnessed or participated in anything illegal. Yeah, right. He's looking forward to answering all the committee's questions to support their important work. Oh, the philanthropist himself, coming to help the committee any way he could. All these very rich people had no idea Jeffrey Epstein was assaulting these young girls at these parties that they were at. No, everyone was in the dark, right? All these brilliant minds, right? All these geniuses, all these world leaders had no idea Jeffrey Epstein was doing these things. It was a complete mystery to them. Does anyone listening buy this? Of course not. Will James Comer actually get to the bottom of this? Will the DOJ actually get to the bottom of this for once? Now, of course, Gates hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing by any Epstein victims. But the question remains, why was he hanging out with this guy? What's going on here? It's a bit strange, isn't it, folks? Everyone just hanging out with this guy who's a complete pervert, a sex offender, a pedophile, and yet nobody has any clue about any of this for years, of course, of which he's been accused of these crimes. Again, there's still millions of documents that have yet to be released, thanks to Pam Bondi, who's gone bye-bye for now. But it begs the big question. Why has nobody been charged? That's a question I want to ask you. Why has nobody been charged? We have, again, emails between Epstein and several other prominent people. Certainly some people didn't know he was doing stuff wrong. Why haven't any of these people been brought in front of Congress or been investigated by the DOJ? That's a question I'd like to ask all of you. When are we going to start seeing some progress with this? We've been told before, this is the most transparent government in American history, apparently. What's going to happen to Bill Gates? Absolutely nothing. Now, it looks nice on the abstracts that, oh, okay, he's going to be brought in front of Congress, but we know these people lie. We know these people don't do anything. We had pictures of Bill Gates with people blotched out. Did anything happen to him? Did I say Bill Gates or Bill Clinton? I meant Bill Clinton right now. We got to get to the bottom of this, folks, and I think we owe it to all the victims of Epstein in order to do so. That's all the time we have for today's show, folks. Thank you for being here. As always, I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow for the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, and God bless.